These dumbbells are lighter than betrayal.
Nathan Cross discovered his wife was pregnant with another man's child on the same day she asked him to sign papers, making him financially responsible for it. The irony wasn't lost on him as he sat in his truck outside the clinic, holding the paternity test results that proved what his gut had been screaming for months. The factory whistle blew across the gray December sky of Cleveland, signaling the end of another shift. Nathan folded the papers carefully and slipped them into his jacket pocket next to the recording device he'd been carrying for 3 weeks. Everything was about to change, but not the way Lena thought. The snow crunched under Nathan's boots as he walked up the driveway to their modest 2-story house. At 38, he'd spent 15 years working the night shift at Cleveland Steel, saving every penny so Lena could finish her degree and climb the corporate ladder at TechFlow Solutions. Now she was pulling in twice his salary as an HR manager, and he could see the way she looked at him, like a relic from a life she'd outgrown. "You're late," Lena called from the kitchen as he hung up his coat. She didn't look up from her laptop, fingers flying across the keys. Even 8 months pregnant, she maintained the polished appearance that had first caught his attention at a college party 20 years ago. Auburn hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite it being nearly midnight. "Overtime," Nathan replied, settling into the worn recliner that had been his father's. "Bills don't pay themselves." Lena's laugh held no warmth. "About that." "We need to talk." She closed the laptop and turned to face him, one hand resting on her rounded belly. The gesture looked rehearsed, calculated. Nathan had learned to recognize these moments when Lena had decided something and was preparing to present it as a discussion. "Miles thinks we should consider a bigger place," she said. "Something more appropriate for our growing family." Nathan's jaw tightened. Miles Rowan, the sales director at Lena's company, had been a frequent topic of conversation for the past 6 months. Always, "Miles thinks this. Miles says that. Miles knows about real estate. Miles understands investments." Nathan had met him twice, a tall, gym-built man with the kind of confident smile that came from never being told no. "Miles thinks a lot of things," Nathan said carefully. "But he's not the one paying the mortgage." "That's exactly the problem." Lena's voice carried that edge he'd been hearing more often lately. "You're still thinking like we're broke college kids." "I'm making real money now, Nathan. We could afford something better. We could afford a lot of things if we weren't trying to impress your work friends every weekend." The words hung in the air between them. Lena's eyes flashed with something Nathan couldn't quite read. Anger, guilt, or maybe just annoyance at having to maintain the pretense. "Is that what you think? That I'm trying to impress people?" She stood up, moving to the window. "Maybe I'm just tired of pretending we're happy when we're clearly not." Nathan felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means we need to be honest about what's happening here." Lena turned back to him, her expression softening into what he now recognized as her manipulation face. "We're not the same people we were when we got married. We want different things. I want the same thing I've always wanted. A family, a home. Someone who doesn't look at me like I'm something stuck to the bottom of her shoe." "Don't be dramatic." Lena moved closer, reaching for his hand. "I love you, Nathan. But maybe we need to explore what that means in today's world. Maybe we need to be more open." The word hit him like a physical blow. Open. There are couples who make it work, who are honest about their needs instead of suffocating each other with outdated expectations. Her thumb traced across his knuckles. "Miles has friends who—" "Stop." Nathan pulled his hand away. "Just stop. I'm trying to save our marriage, Nathan. I'm trying to find a way for us both to be happy. By sleeping with other people, by being honest about what we want instead of pretending we can live in some 1950s fantasy." Lena's voice rose. Then she caught herself, glancing toward the stairs. "Look, I know it's not traditional, but maybe traditional isn't working for us anymore." Nathan stood up slowly, feeling like he was moving through thick water. "How long? How long what? How long have you been sleeping with him?" The silence stretched between them. Lena's face went through several expressions: surprise, calculation, resignation. Finally, she lifted her chin with the defiance he'd once found attractive. "Does it matter? We're talking about the future, not the past. It matters to me." 3 months, she said quietly. Maybe 4. I didn't plan it, Nathan. It just happened. Nathan nodded like she'd just told him the weather forecast. And the baby? What about the baby? Is it mine? Lena's face went pale. Of course it's yours. How can you even ask that? Because the timing's about right, isn't it? 4 months ago, you were working late a lot, going to those team building events, coming home smelling like expensive cologne. You're being paranoid. Am I? Nathan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the folded papers. Because I already know the answer. Lena stared at the paternity test results, her face cycling through emotions. You tested my baby? I tested the baby you're carrying, the one you want me to sign papers for, the one you've been lying about for months. Nathan, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you've been planning to pass off another man's child as mine? Can you explain why you've been letting me buy nursery furniture and paint the spare room while you laugh about it with your friends? I never laughed about it. No? Nathan pulled out his phone and played a recording. Lena's voice, clear and sharp, came through the speaker. He's so pathetic, honestly. Asking if I need help with my prenatal vitamins when he doesn't even know they're not for his kid. Miles thinks we should just tell him after the birth. Make it a fait accompli. Lena's friend Carly's voice responded, That's brutal. I love it. He'll never leave you then. He's too much of a good guy. Nathan stopped the recording. That was last Tuesday. You were having lunch at that new place on Euclid. You followed me? I drove by. Your voices carry. Nathan pocketed the phone. Funny thing about those paternity papers you want me to sign. They're not just about acknowledging the baby. They're about taking legal responsibility for child support, even if we divorce. Lena's composure finally cracked. Nathan, please. Let me explain. It's complicated. No, it's not. Nathan moved toward the stairs. It's the simplest thing in the world. You decided I wasn't good enough for you anymore. But you wanted to keep me around to pay for your new life. You and Miles had a good laugh about the dumb factory worker who'd raise another man's child and thank you for the privilege. Where are you going? To pack some things. I'll be staying at Victor's for a while. Nathan, wait. We can work this out. The baby doesn't have to change anything between us. He paused at the bottom of the stairs. You're right. It doesn't change anything. Because there is no us. There hasn't been for months. I was just too stupid to see it. Don't do this. Don't throw away 20 years over a mistake. A mistake? Nathan turned back to her. Which part was the mistake? Sleeping with Miles? Getting pregnant? Or getting caught? Lena's face hardened. Fine. You want to be the victim? Play the victim. But don't pretend this is all my fault. You checked out of this marriage a long time ago. You stopped trying to be the man I needed. And what man is that, Lena? The one who makes enough money to buy you a house you can brag about? The one who looks good next to you at company parties? The one who doesn't embarrass you in front of your educated friends? The one who doesn't give up on life at 38? The words hit harder than Nathan expected. He stared at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, and saw a stranger. When had she become someone who could say something so cruel? When had he become someone who deserved it? You're right, he said quietly. I did give up. I gave up on thinking I was worth something. I gave up on believing someone could love me for who I am instead of what I could provide. He started up the stairs. That ends now. Nathan, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. He paused on the landing. You meant every word. And for the first time in months, we're finally being honest with each other. 20 minutes later, Nathan carried a single duffel bag to his truck. Lena stood in the doorway, her arms wrapped around herself against the cold. This isn't over, she called. You can't just walk away from your responsibilities. Nathan threw his bag in the passenger seat and turned back to her. You're right. I can't walk away from my responsibilities, but I can walk away from your lies. He drove through the empty streets of Cleveland, past the shuttered factories and boarded-up storefronts that had once been the heart of a thriving city. At a red light, he pulled out his phone and called Victor. Nathan, everything okay? Can I crash at your place for a few days? I'll explain when I get there. Of course you can. You know where I keep the spare key? Nathan hung up and continued driving. In his rearview mirror, he could see the glow of the house he'd called home for 15 years. But home wasn't a place, he realized. It was the feeling of being wanted, of being valued, of being loved for who you were instead of what you could provide. He'd spent 20 years trying to be worth loving. Now he was going to find out what it felt like to stop caring about being worthy. Victor's apartment sat above a corner store in the old Polish neighborhood, 3 rooms that smelled like cigarettes and coffee. Victor himself was a contradiction. A philosophy degree from Case Western who'd spent 20 years working factory jobs. A man who read Nietzsche on his lunch breaks and could rebuild a transmission blindfolded. "So she's been playing house with Pretty Boy while you paid the bills," Victor said, pouring coffee from a pot that had seen better decades. "How long you known?" "Suspected for months. Confirmed it yesterday." Nathan sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paternity test results. "Part of me almost admires the planning. Get pregnant, convince me to sign the papers, then even if I found out later, I'd be legally responsible. What's your next move? File for divorce, contest paternity, start over." Victor lit a cigarette and leaned against the counter. That's what a reasonable man would do. But reasonable men don't usually end up here at 2 in the morning with their life in a duffel bag. Victor's eyes were sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Question is, what kind of man are you really?" Nathan considered this. "I always thought I was a good man. Decent, fair, someone who kept his promises and treated people right. And where did that get you? Played for a fool. So maybe it's time to stop being good." Victor sat down across from him. "Maybe it's time to be effective." "Meaning?" "Meaning she declared war on you months ago. You just didn't know you were fighting." Victor tapped his cigarette into a coffee mug. "Now you can either surrender or you can fight back. But if you fight back, you better make sure you win." Nathan spent the next 3 days thinking about what Victor had said. He went to work, came home to the small apartment, and planned. Not the kind of planning he'd done his whole life. Careful, conservative, always thinking about the consequences. This was different. This was strategic. On Friday, he called in sick and drove to downtown Cleveland. His first stop was a lawyer's office in the Terminal Tower, a woman named Patricia Walsh, who specialized in family law. She was in her 50s, with silver hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that came from years of dealing with lying spouses. "You want to contest paternity and file for divorce," she said, reviewing his paperwork. "That's straightforward. The recording you have isn't admissible in court, but it's useful for negotiations." "What about the papers she wanted me to sign?" "Smart move not signing them. In Ohio, if you sign an acknowledgement of paternity, it's very difficult to challenge later, even with DNA evidence." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "Your wife's not stupid. She knew exactly what she was doing." "Can I get alimony?" "Unlikely. You both work, and she makes more than you. But we can push for a clean break. No spousal support either direction." Nathan nodded. "What about the house? Joint asset? You'll have to sell or one of you buys out the other." Patricia made notes on her legal pad. "I have to ask, are you sure you want to pursue this? Divorce is expensive and emotionally draining. Sometimes couples work things out." "We're past that point." "Then we'll file the papers Monday. In the meantime, document everything. Keep records of all your interactions with your wife. And Nathan, don't do anything stupid. No matter how angry you get, don't give her ammunition to use against you." Nathan's next stop was a gym in the Flats, a converted warehouse where serious fighters trained. He'd found it online, drawn by the stark honesty of the photos. No chrome machines or mirrors, just heavy bags and worn mats and men who looked like they'd seen real violence. The owner was a former Marine named Tommy Sullivan, built like a fire hydrant with scars that told stories. He looked Nathan up and down with the kind of assessment that came from years of judging men's capacity for violence. "You ever fight before?" Tommy asked. "High school wrestling, nothing serious." "What do you want to learn? How to hurt someone without going to jail?" Tommy grinned. "Boxing, then. Maybe some jujitsu. Legal as long as it's consensual." He gestured toward the heavy bags. "You look like you got some rage to work out." "Something like that." "Good. Rage is fuel. Just gotta learn to control it." Tommy handed him a pair of gloves. "Show me what you got." Nathan spent the next hour hitting bags until his knuckles bled through the gloves. It felt good, better than good. For the first time in months, he felt like he was taking action instead of just absorbing punishment. "You got potential," Tommy said as Nathan toweled off. "But you're fighting angry. Angry fighters make mistakes. Come back Tuesday, we'll start teaching you to fight smart." That evening, Nathan returned to the house to pick up more clothes. Lena was in the living room talking on the phone. She looked up when he entered, her expression guarded. "I have to go," she said into the phone. "Nathan's here." She hung up and turned to him. "We need to talk." "No, we don't." Nathan headed for the stairs. "I'm not signing any divorce papers." Nathan stopped. "You don't have a choice." "I do if I contest it. I can drag this out for years, Nathan. Make it expensive. Make it ugly." Lena's voice was calm, controlled. "Or we can work something out." "What kind of something?" "You don't contest paternity. You help me raise the baby. In exchange, I'll be discreet about Miles. We can even work out some kind of arrangement." "You mean keep pretending to be married while you screw around?" "I mean act like adults instead of drama queens." Lena stood up, moving closer. "Think about it, Nathan. You walk away with nothing. I get the house, the baby, and you still have to pay support. Or we stay married, you help raise a child, and everyone's happy. Everyone except me. You'll adjust. You always do." Nathan stared at his wife, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. She wasn't cruel or evil. She was practical. In her mind, this was just another negotiation, another problem to solve. The fact that she was asking him to live a lie, to raise another man's child, to pretend to be happy while she continued her affair, these were just details to be managed. "I'll think about it," he said finally. Lena smiled. "Good. Take your time. But don't take too long. I'm showing now, and people are starting to ask questions." Nathan went upstairs and packed more clothes. In their bedroom, her bedroom now, he noticed Miles's cologne on the nightstand. The man had been in their house, in their bed, while Nathan was at work. The rage that had been simmering for weeks threatened to boil over. Instead, he pulled out his phone and started recording. December 15th, 8:30 p.m. "Lena Cross has threatened to contest divorce proceedings unless I agree to raise Miles Rowan's child as my own. She's also admitted to allowing her lover access to the marital home." He pocketed the phone and finished packing. On his way out, he stopped in the kitchen and opened the laptop Lena had left on the counter. She'd never changed the password, their anniversary date, and her email was still logged in. Nathan spent 10 minutes reading through messages between Lena and Miles. The details were worse than he'd imagined. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning a future together. Miles was looking at apartments. Lena was researching divorce lawyers. They'd discussed how to maximize Nathan's child support obligations while minimizing their own financial exposure. The final message in the chain was from Miles, sent that afternoon. "Baby's getting suspicious. Maybe we should cool it for a few weeks until he signs the papers." Lena had responded, "He'll sign. He doesn't have the spine to do anything else." Nathan closed the laptop and walked to his truck. For the first time since this nightmare began, he was smiling. The divorce papers were filed on Monday morning. By Wednesday, Nathan had moved his money to a separate account and hired a private investigator to document Miles and Lena's affair. By Friday, he was ready to start fighting back. The first move was subtle. Nathan had found something interesting in Lena's emails, a message to her sister discussing the baby's due date. The math was off by almost a month, suggesting Lena had been lying about conception timing even to her own family. Nathan forwarded the email to his lawyer with a note, useful for establishing timeline of deception. The second move was more direct. Nathan had learned that Miles frequented an upscale gym in Beechwood, the kind of place where executives went to maintain their physiques and network. It took Nathan 2 weeks to arrange a guest pass through a friend of Victor's who worked there. Miles was easy to spot. Tall, tanned, wearing expensive workout clothes and holding court with a group of younger men who hung on his every word. Nathan watched him for an hour, noting his routine, his habits, his casual arrogance. On Thursday evening, Nathan was waiting in the parking lot when Miles came out. "Miles Rowan?" Nathan stepped out of the shadows. Miles spun around, his face cycling through confusion and recognition. "Nathan? What are you doing here?" "Wanted to meet the man who's been sleeping with my wife?" Nathan's voice was calm, conversational. "Figured it was time we talked. Look, I don't know what Lena told you, but she didn't tell me anything. I figured it out myself." Nathan moved closer, noting how Miles took a step back. "Paternity test came back. Congratulations, you're going to be a father." Miles's face went pale. That's not possible. DNA doesn't lie. Unlike some people." Nathan pulled out his phone. "Want to hear something interesting?" Your baby mama's been telling people you're just a fling, that she's not leaving her husband for you. That's not true. No? Let me play you something. Nathan started the recording from Lena's phone call with her sister. Lena's voice clear and sharp. Miles thinks we're going to play house together, but I'm not throwing away 15 years of marriage for a few months of good closeness. Nathan's reliable. He'll take care of the baby, and I can keep Miles on the side. Miles's face went from pale to red. She said that? She says a lot of things, like how you're good for her ego but not much else, how you're too immature to be a real father, how she's going to milk you for child support while staying married to me. Nathan paused the recording. Sounds like she's playing both of us. I don't believe you. Then call her. Ask her about the conversation she had with her sister yesterday. Ask her if she's really planning to leave me. Nathan put his phone away. Or better yet, ask her why she's been researching how to get child support from multiple fathers. Nathan walked away, leaving Miles standing in the parking lot. He didn't look back, but he could feel the other man's eyes on him. The next morning, Nathan's phone rang. It was Lena, and she was furious. What did you say to Miles? We had a conversation, man to man. He's asking questions. Crazy questions about child support and whether I'm really leaving you. Lena's voice was strained. What did you tell him? The truth, that you're playing us both. I'm not playing anyone. I'm trying to figure out what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone is honesty, something you might want to try. Nathan hung up. Within hours, the situation exploded. Miles confronted Lena at work, demanding to know if she was planning to leave Nathan. Lena, caught off guard, said something that made Miles storm out. By evening, Lena was calling Nathan in tears. He broke up with me, she said. He said I was manipulative and he couldn't trust me. Imagine that. This is your fault. You poisoned him against me. I told him the truth. If that poisoned him against you, what does that say about your relationship? Lena was quiet for a long moment. What do you want, Nathan? I want you to sign the divorce papers. I want you to admit the baby isn't mine. And I want you to stop pretending we can work this out. And if I don't, then things get messy. Your boss finds out about your affair with a subordinate. Your parents find out about the baby. Your church friends find out about your open marriage idea. Nathan's voice was steady. Your choice. You bastard. I'm learning. The final confrontation came 2 weeks later. Nathan had arranged to meet Lena at a restaurant in Little Italy, ostensibly to discuss their separation. But when she arrived, she found Nathan sitting at a table with her parents, her sister, and Miles. What is this? Lena's face was white. Family meeting, Nathan said. Everyone deserves to know the truth. Nathan had prepared carefully. He'd brought copies of the paternity test, screenshots of text messages, and a recording of Lena's admission that she'd been planning to deceive him about the baby's parentage. I don't understand, Lena's mother said, staring at the test results. The baby isn't Nathan's? It's complicated, Lena said, sitting down heavily. No, it's not, Nathan replied. Your daughter has been having an affair for months. She got pregnant by her lover and tried to trick me into raising the child as my own. Lena, is this true? Her father asked. Lena looked around the table, seeing the faces of people who'd loved and trusted her. I made some mistakes. Mistakes? Miles spoke for the first time. You told me you were leaving him. You told me we were going to be together. I was trying to figure things out. You were trying to have it both ways, Nathan said. Keep me around to pay the bills while you played house with Miles. When that didn't work, you were going to make me raise his child while you collected support from both of us. That's not true. Then explain these. Nathan placed printed emails on the table. Your messages to your sister about keeping me as a backup plan, your conversations with Miles about maximizing child support, your research into paternity fraud laws. Lena's sister picked up one of the emails and read it. Oh my God, Lena. What were you thinking? I was thinking about what was best for the baby. You were thinking about what was best for you, Nathan said. Just like always. The confrontation lasted 2 hours. By the end, Lena sat alone at the table while her family processed what they'd learned. Miles had left after calling her a liar and a manipulator. Her parents had excused themselves, too shocked to speak. Her sister had simply shaken her head and walked away. Are you happy now? Lena asked Nathan. No, but I'm free. Nathan stood up. Sign the papers, Lena. This ends now. And if I don't, then tomorrow your boss learns about your affair. Your coworkers learn about the baby. Your church friends learn about your open marriage proposal. Nathan put on his coat. You taught me something important, Lena. You taught me that being good isn't enough. Sometimes you have to be strong. Nathan walked out of the restaurant into the cold Cleveland night. Behind him, he could hear Lena crying. He felt no satisfaction, no sense of victory, just a deep, bone-deep exhaustion. His phone buzzed. A text from Victor. How'd it go? Nathan typed back. It's over. Good. Meet me at Sullivan's gym. Got someone I want you to meet. Nathan drove through the city, past the house he'd once called home, past the factory where he'd spent 15 years of his life. The gym was crowded despite the late hour, full of men working out their frustrations on heavy bags and each other. Victor was talking to a man Nathan didn't recognize, older, well-dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from success. Nathan, this is David Kane. He owns a construction company. Been looking for someone to run his Cleveland operation. Kane shook Nathan's hand, studying him with sharp eyes. Victor tells me you're looking for a fresh start. Something like that. I need someone who can handle men, manage projects, deal with difficult situations. Victor says you've got potential. Nathan looked around the gym at the men who'd found their strength in the hardest way possible. When do I start? Monday, if you're interested. I'm interested. Kane nodded and walked away. Victor clapped Nathan on the shoulder. New job, new life. How's it feel? Like I'm finally waking up. Nathan spent the next hour hitting the heavy bag, working out the last of his anger. When he was done, he felt empty, but clean, like a fever had finally broken. The divorce papers were signed the following week. Lena moved in with her sister, alone and pregnant with a child she couldn't afford to raise. Miles had transferred to the company's Chicago office, wanting nothing to do with the mess he'd helped create. Nathan never saw his ex-wife again. He heard through mutual friends that she'd had a boy, that she was struggling to make ends meet on her own, that she'd tried to contact Miles for support, but he'd blocked her number. He felt no satisfaction in her suffering. He felt nothing at all. 3 months later, Nathan was walking through a job site when his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Nathan, it's me. Lena's voice was small, defeated. I need help. The baby's sick and I can't afford the medical bills. I know you don't owe me anything, but you're right. I don't owe you anything. Please. I'm desperate. I don't have anyone else to call. Nathan stood in the middle of the construction site, surrounded by the sounds of men building something new. You made your choice, Lena. You chose to lie, to cheat, to use people. Now you live with the consequences. I was wrong. I know I was wrong, but the baby didn't do anything wrong. No, he didn't, but he's not my responsibility. He never was. Nathan's voice was calm, final. Call his father. Call Miles. Maybe he'll help you. He won't take my calls. Then you better figure something else out. Nathan hung up and put his phone away. Around him, the construction continued. Men building something solid, something that would last. He picked up his clipboard and got back to work. The man who'd been willing to sacrifice everything for love was gone. In his place stood someone harder, colder, but infinitely stronger. Someone who understood that kindness without boundaries was just another word for weakness. Someone who would never again mistake being good for being worthy.